Alex here with a high conflict child custody video on, I think they call them person of special interest, person to have been found to have special interest. It's a designation that they use in, people call them CPS cases. They're also called NRS 432B cases in Nevada after the chapter. They're also called abuse and neglect proceedings. They're also called DCFS cases. They're also called, in other states, not here, they call them, some states call them CHINS cases or CHINS proceedings, which is acronym CHINS, Child in Need of Services. By the way, those states with CHINS courts are a little different than the ones here. As far as I know, some states have proceedings like these where once these proceedings are instituted, no other proceedings can occur. And what I mean by other proceedings, I would mean like divorce, child custody, etc. Anything that has to do with the custody of the child is in the jurisdiction of the CHINS proceeding. Other states might use a different label but do the same thing. As far as I know, in Nevada, the proceedings run parallel. So I guess I'll just call them CPS cases, which is what most people call them. The CPS cases run parallel with any other family court case that's going on. This matters. This matters quite a lot, and I think I have a video on the topic. I wish I could remember the title of it. It might be a video on CHINS, or it might be called Abuse and Neglect Revisited, something like that. It does matter because I've heard that in those states they will actually ask a non-offending parent, because this is typically why people come to this channel, is they have another parent who's doing all these terrible things, or so they say, and they're a good parent, and in those states they will actually ask the good parent to sign a piece of paper that says they're incapable of providing for the child's needs, and by doing so the CHINS court takes over. I think what they do is they offer to loop that parent in as a placement for the child, but it doesn't always go that way. So it's, the concept, even though we don't really do that in Nevada, the sort of general concepts are still there. Like, CPS is there to protect a child, and if there's a parent who's abusing the child and another parent who's not, and they're not together, so you can have this situation where you have a good parent that's just unable to protect the child. That's in the video, Duty to Protect, if you want to take a look at that. Then they will just say, okay, yeah, this horrible person abused the child, but this other person who's not with them has the child now, so we don't need to open a case. This is very confusing for a lot of people. A lot of people will say, that doesn't make any sense. Where is the justice? CPS court is not there for that kind of justice. You're talking criminal court when you think of it that way. CPS is there to place a child who needs help into a home where they are taken care of. And that is oftentimes, unfortunately, a foster home, even though sometimes the foster home, or the placement, if you want to call it that, is actually a relative, so it's not really that bad in that situation. Like if they're with an aunt or a grandparent or something. Anyway, to the point of this video is the designation that you're a person with special interest in a particular child that's in that court. It's, as far as I know, I don't want to be cynical. I guess the cynical side of me wants to say it's a way for them to make you feel important, but keep you out of their way. I'm sure it's helpful for a lot of people as well. You get declared as one of these people, and then you have access to what's going on. Like, they'll send you documents, they'll give you the background, you'll be allowed to go to the hearings if you want, but you can't litigate. You can't file anything. You can't control the case. You're there to speak, and that's it. And usually the emails that I get from people are very frustrated. They're like, hey, I'm, being ignored, and I don't understand why I can't have this child because they're my relative and CPS is doing weird things. And they think that because they're one of these people with special interests, according to the state, that they have some kind of special power, like they have to give their permission or they have a say. No, they have to listen to you. They have to consider what you're saying. But the judge can say, thank you for speaking to the court. I have considered everything that you have said, and I am not going to do that. I'm going to do this instead. That's perfectly valid. That happens, and that's usually why I get emails. So I mean, this is something that can get real convoluted real quick. I'm just going to say, in an overarching, abstract, general sort of sense, that in Nevada, it appears to me that if you want to control custody in a situation like that, you would have to have some kind of proceeding in family court that's instituted, whether you're the other parent and you want to institute child custody proceedings, or if you're married and you want to institute a divorce, or whether you're just an outsider that for whatever reason has a connection with the child and you want to get, I think they call it third party custody, stuff like that, or guardianship. Those proceedings can be instituted by, in Nevada, at least as far as I know, can be instituted by the person who then becomes a litigant, who then has the power to control that child's custody situation. I think a lot of people don't want to do that because it's expensive. They don't want to hire a lawyer, or they don't want to represent themselves because they're scared. And they just want CPS to do all the work for them. Well, sometimes CPS will do all the work for you, but they won't do exactly what it is you want them to do. And I'm not going to act like every single time that's because they're bad. CPS is full of good people and bad people. Sometimes they ignore somebody for good reasons. Sometimes they don't, you know. So that's really what it comes down to, is you can get this designation and then you're allowed to participate in the proceedings and get some information and say stuff if you want to, but you don't have the power to litigate. If you want to litigate, you have to figure out how to become a litigant, a party. I think somebody asked me once if you could intervene into an NRS 432B proceeding. My very strong suspicion is that you can't, but I don't know. I mean, these are the right questions, honestly. People are asking the right questions. Whether you can or can't do it is something you have to figure out on your own by doing your own research. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. As far as I know, if you want to become a person of special interest in one of these cases, you really just have to ask CPS. I don't even think you have to file anything. I think you just ask CPS and they just like do it for you. It's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal to them. If you go to court and you say things to the judge that they don't like, they'll probably be very annoyed by you. They might stop telling you when the hearing dates are. But there's not really anything they can do about it, and oftentimes they can just get the judge to disregard what you're saying anyway. All I have to say is this is one of those extraordinarily convoluted areas of the law, because you have a situation where way too often there's some kind of problem within a family where some members of the family are in a feud with another faction of the family. I mean, in the most simplest form, it's two people. They were together, they had a baby, and they split up. But there are complex forms of this where entire families are at odds with each other, and people start calling CPS, and they expect CPS to sort it out for them. And it's like you're asking for a nail to do a screw's job. I mean, it kind of might be able to do it, but that's not really what it was designed to do. I mean, it's designed for an outsider, like a doctor or a teacher, something like that, to say, hey, this child is being abused by their parents. And then CPS comes and takes the child out of the home. But people use it like they're in a conflict with this other person, usually in a child custody case, or it's like I mentioned, a family feud's going on, and they're like using it as a weapon because they're too poor to afford a lawyer. So since they can't afford a lawyer and they're too poor, they just pick up the phone and call CPS. It's about 10 minutes of their time. It doesn't cost them a nickel, and then they unleash havoc. And CPS is not really meant to do that. They're not really meant to say, okay, you guys are the bad ones. You guys are the good ones. We're going to do all of this legal ninjutsu and move this child from you to you. And that's not really what they're meant to do. I mean, I imagine there are situations where it can happen. It makes me wonder how it happens. You know, maybe they remove a child from a situation and they find out there's this estranged father that like just hadn't seen their kid for 2 years, and they're like, oh, okay, well, let's go see what's going on there. And the dad's like, oh, I didn't know. I haven't seen my kid for 2 years. She wouldn't let me have him. CPS, you're going to let me have him? Okay, I'll take him. You know, that's like sort of the situation that I imagine CPS taking the child from one parent, giving them to the other. But too often, when it comes to this channel, when it comes to this situation, it's two people who are already at odds with each other, and they're already in court sometimes, they're not in court sometimes, and they're just like, hey, I need help. I'm broke. I'm going to call CPS. So, I mean, that's, in my honest opinion, that's what it is. In my own child custody case, went on for 8 years. I never called him once. I did hear that a bunch of teachers and other people called him, but I never called him once. I think they were called 6 times and they didn't do anything. Well, they may have researched it, but they didn't like take any action. They didn't get involved. They didn't open a case. They didn't do anything. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.